Good evening and welcome to tonight's show from DJNTV, Jockey News TV. Tonight's show is brought to you by Electric Voice, DJ Event Planner, DJ Trivia, Odyssey Innovative Designs and Cases, NLFX Professional, Promo Only, and the DJNTV Insiders.
DJ Event Planner will change the way you manage and run your business. Streamline all of your procedures and software into one easy-to-manage system. DJ Event Planner, the ultimate online planning tool.
Here we go. Hey, we are here on a Tuesday night on DJNTV. Thank you guys for joining us this evening. If you're joining us out on YouTube or out on Facebook, or if you're just somehow managing to get the wires in your head, I don't know how you're doing it, but it's good to have you here. My guest tonight is Howard Wallach. Good evening, Howard.
Hello, hello.
Hey, thanks for being with me tonight. We've got a lot of stuff we're going to get into this evening. For those of you out there, I'm going to put the link to the YouTube video. This is the main one. Follow the chat room on this. If you do have any questions or any thoughts or something you'd like to share during the video tonight, you can, if you're on the YouTube one, you can put it right there and I will see that. Otherwise, if you're on Facebook, it should propagate over to the software so I can see those also. So Howard, we're going to talk a little bit tonight, digging into that concept of working remotely, because you've had the experience here in the last several months, over the winter, what have you, of being able to keep your business based in Chicago going while you have been doing other things. One of which is kind of related to the sweatshirt you're wearing tonight, which for those of you who don't know, it's been like hot today in Chicago. So there's Howard wearing a sweatshirt.
This is the ship that I had the good fortune of having a DJ assignment on. It was cut short because of COVID, but the time I had on there was exhilarating and challenging, and I loved it. It was one more example of the need for me to handle my business remotely.
So we'll talk about the ship side of it a little bit, and then you had another experience where you were also, again, out of the office from your Chicago office.
You know, in the last 18 months, this is crazy, but 3 I's: Ireland, Israel, and Indonesia.
Oh my.
So in addition to, people think working remotely is working from home or working from a Starbucks. Now I had the extra challenge of working in different time zones. So I've really had to be dialed in to the various needs from my clients, my staff, my vendors, all that working together harmoniously I was up for the task, and I've had litmus tests leading up to this. Mm-hmm. So I've positioned myself well.
Well, let's start on the things that you needed to do to prepare the business locally for it to be ready to go, for you to step into a different area and still be able to handle it. So what did you do to the office there in Chicago?
Well, it starts with, and I'm a multi-op, right? So as the owner, the rainmaker, the closer, of course, I'm intimately involved in most, if not all, of the touches that happen in the relationship leading up to their special events. But administratively speaking, I have office help. I have 2 gals administratively that are helping me at all levels of that communication and that coordination. If you divide the clients up into the existing pipeline and new business, it's easy to field questions for, call it a rolling calendar, everything that's happening in the next 60 days. You know, those details, those nuances are easy to navigate through. The bigger challenge for my particular operation, which combines the special event entertainment along with production, is that we don't have a platinum, gold, silver, ABC package. We are trying to provide solutions. So when a bride calls, when a company calls, when a class reunion calls, whatever the ask is, the real challenge is trying to take all of their needs and put them into a basket and create a personalized bid, an outline of services. So what they're paying for is exactly what they need. So really what I've done internally with the folks in my office, the two women that work with me, is to have templates in place. You know, we use a combination of, like many of the DJs out there, Google Docs and the iCloud and Dropbox for a wide variety. If you're organizing yourself, you might choose to do, I'm going to put these items for external communication. I'm going to put these items for internal. I'm going to put large files here, smaller files here. So there's a combination of things. But for us, not only having templates in place, but, you know, role playing. And before I would leave town, it's not uncommon for me to have Zoom calls internally and just set up all those expectations and talk out loud. You know, as many of your DJs, we are all relying on our CRM, and it's proven you can work on it from your phone, you can work on it from your tablet. I have really exploited DJ Event Planner. So in advance of my departure, wherever I'm going, like going on this cruise recently, requires me to, in advance, put my equipment checklists together, right? Put my staffing in place. And I cannot emphasize enough how important it is what I call the handshake. You know, especially with my staff and my vendors, the idea of, if I call me back. If I text me back. If I message me back. So that there's an absolute bottom line before I head out, that there's a degree of comfort level before I even head out, right? This is a time when you know you're leaving your business, that being resilient, being resourceful, and being robust are paramount. If the goal is to stay in touch, you can do it. I'm fortunate, for example, on my phone in my office, we have a VoIP. We use something called GoToConnect, which is formerly Live Communication.
Okay.
Another example is the ability for me to cloak outgoing calls, right? So the illusion is that I'm providing their answers and their solutions from the office, when in fact I could be anywhere, right? And people are using lots of different platforms. It doesn't have to be DJ Event Planner. It doesn't have to be a VoIP. I'm speaking to you from my truth, my reality.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, John, I think most of the people that are tuning in to us right now, there's a certain pride, you know, in our own work output level. Like I set up expectations for myself that I want to meet. So going away, yes, there's play and there's other things happening when I'm out of town, but I really am very focused on not dropping the ball with any of these relationships, but by my own standards, right? So that is why I put so much nurture into before I head out of town.
Well, one of the areas, I mean, you go by the moniker of Top Dog, and obviously that means that you have got a level of importance, and people associate the business with you. So now, how do things like sales calls or that type of thing that really becomes they want to talk to you Yes, the VoIP, I can see how that would work, but there's still, I mean, you're in different time zones, and they're calling at, you're in you're in a time zone where they're calling at 5 in the evening, and you might be somewhere where it's 10 o'clock at night. How do you handle that type of stuff and keep the top dog available for conference or
all right? So the good news is they can call the office, right? They can use Facebook. They can Google search me, and what they're going to end up doing is their very first electronic touch goes through a process that I've enlisted called high level. It's an automation. There's a lot to unpack in that arena. But high level allows me to leverage and capture new clients with automated messages and emails. I can schedule appointments. I can run campaigns through it. It's a wonderful program. I actually got guidance and coaching from a gentleman out there, some of your viewers will know, named Mike Petritis.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So using high level is number one. It responds immediately and in many cases automatically. Depending on how they answer, it's artificial intelligence, mm-hmm. right? It's a wonderful system, and it's one of many that are out there. But when they call the office and they get a real voice that's not top dog, they're going to talk to Karen, they're going to talk to Jamie, and basically the instruction is get as much information as you possibly can. Answer what you can. What you're not comfortable answering, say, let me get back to you. No one expects you. I'm going to give you an analogy. Mm-hmm. John, when you go to the bank, you in the course of a year, you might have maybe 16 kinds of transactions that you're going to deal with the teller. But if you flip the script, if you were the teller, you have no idea what the next 10 people in line are going to ask of you. You have to know 600 transactions. It would be unrealistic for me to think that my staff could possibly answer every nuance, every nook and cranny of hospitality, special events, and production.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with them being transparent and honest and saying, I don't have an answer for you right now. Let me put this in front of Howard Wallach. He's checking in later or tomorrow, and we'll get back to you with an easy answer. So sometimes there's a built-in delay.
Sure.
Right? And it's not unlike, I'll give you another example. How many of us let the phone go to voicemail so that you can hear the message, so that you can log into your CRM and talk to them with all the information in front of you instead of haphazardly? I think it's a privilege, right, that these people are counting on you for their live events. So give them the full respect of your full attention. It's very hard to do when you're driving, if you're, wherever you are in the world. So I am more focused on that than not, so that when I'm away, I want to have all of their information in front of me when I'm talking with them. So the more I get preambled, it helps.
Certainly, yeah. That's an interesting way of having the office for people who can get back to them, and because sometimes people don't want to have the let it be known that Howard's out or Howard's not around. It seems like in this day and age that becomes almost a faux pas if we are hey, I'll get back to you later, and it's like businesses are terrified to do that, but as you say, it happens.
I think being authentic and being vulnerable is part of the experience. They're human interactions. How many times do you call someone? At least for me, John, when I dial someone out, one of my very first questions, and if we have mutual people in common, they're going to laugh when I say this. I start my phone call with, is this good or bad time? Mm-hmm. I might say, do you have 5 minutes? Do you have 15 minutes? Do you have 30 minutes? I want to be respectful of their time. It sets a precedent that, I'm not available 24/7, but when we are engaged, it's going to be full 110%. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. A great tip with nothing related to the remote office, but your great tip to for those out there who get it. You can tell when somebody calls and you're okay. I'm going to take 10 minutes and talk to them quickly, and then they get distracted 30 seconds into the conversation or a minute into the conversation, and it's like, okay.
John, I've dropped the names of quite a few platforms. And the list goes on and on and on. What works for me may not work for others. The one thing they have in common, of course, is the use of the internet. And without the internet, it changes everything. How fortunate are we that it's 2020, and for everybody that's in hospitality, in special events, in production, that we have access like never before.
Yes.
You know, whether it's keeping things in the cloud or just the ability to do like this. I mean, here you are and I are on Zoom.
Yeah.
And Zoom has become the go-to for so many people, young and old, seasoned and newbie. I had a conversation with Brian B., who is another traveling DJ, a guy who's not often at home to handle every single bit of minutia. And he's a big fan of the platform called Slack. That's what he uses to keep in touch. He likes the way it keeps track. And there's always a written, you can see the timeline of everything, everybody, the way they've communicated. So there are going to be plenty of folks that have different ways of handling their business. But I think it comes from, you know, just acknowledging that this is something that's a priority to you. That if you're in this for the long game, be someone that honors your word, be compassionate, and be 110%. That's the win. That's the win. I found that when I was on the ship, internet was sometimes compromised.
Exactly. That's where I wanted to go next. Let's talk a little bit about that. How did you handle that situation?
Of course, is the downside for anybody considering that. I was very fortunate. This was a project. This was a smaller engagement. Many times they're asking talent to go 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year for these contracts. I was able to finesse in my personal arrangements a much smaller contract. I was literally only going to be gone for 5 weeks.
Okay.
The timing was such that I only got to have 2 of those weeks live. I will tell you again, it was exhilarating. It was challenging. I loved the time that I had. If I were to point to one weakness, it was the inability to have consistent and excellent signal. So for me, every time I knew we were heading to port, often I would, my priority, my headspace was get to signal. Find the Margaritaville, find the Starbucks, right?
Right.
Go to the Starwood and get to a place where I could bunker down. Now, the flip side of that is I wasn't able to be present enough to enjoy these amazing and beautiful surroundings.
Sure.
I was all over the Caribbean, you know, the Cayman Islands and the Bahamas and Cozumel and Jamaica, but I wasn't.
You needed to work.
I wasn't partaking in all of the joys of the beautiful weather and being a tourist. I felt a commitment to my relationships, and I wanted to, you know, my priority was getting signal, answering texts and emails, completing bids, you know, signing contracts, everything that I had to do. I was really proud of my team, the entertainers, the technical people, and ultimately my office for problem solving, you know, for being proactive and handling situations. It was across the board. It was an enriching experience. I have done this before, you know, leaving the country for different reasons, for different projects. So this wasn't unusual for me. It wasn't special, but you now have the added complication of this pandemic. And so many of your listeners are probably tuning in when they think about working remotely, they think from working from their home.
Yeah.
All of these things are doable if it's a priority. If this is something that you're passionate about, you can use a CRM, you know, to have those personalized invoices and automated correspondences, the online forms. This is very real. I know there's an entire school of independents and multis that don't want to invest in this kind of thing. They want to have their and they want to have everything on pencil and paper, or are very comfortable using a calendar.
Yeah.
That's literally not work for me.
No, not so much.
It's not
Not for what you do.
possible to function at the level I'm functioning successfully without so many of these platforms and navigating through all the technical and all the engineering to get it where I needed it to be. So I can say yes to more opportunities because of what I have in place.
Yeah, that's the work on the backside, the back end of it is really what you invested in, that built that infrastructure. So now you're able to utilize that infrastructure and open opportunities for you that you wouldn't be able to have if, as you say, you were having to do pencil and paper all the time.
And it goes without saying, I don't want to be a broken record on your show especially, but because we have their ears and their eyes, no one, no matter how far you are in the game, no matter how seasoned you are, should be closed off to education and going to these conferences and tuning into these webinars. I mean, this is free.
Mm-hmm.
If this is moving the dial for anyone, if this is helping anyone, then they should be saying to themselves, I want to drink more of this. I want to listen to others that are going through the same stories, the same issues that I'm having, the same concerns that I'm having, and open themselves up to with pencil and paper and writing notes and immediately, if you can, putting this into action for their own business models. Everyone is different, but I think the people at the level at which they tune into something like this, they do get it.
Yeah.
So if you're listening, I don't know who's out there, pay it forward, and whenever possible, help another DJ, help another business, and tune them into other things, to things that they otherwise would not know about. And that comes through this kind of education, the webinars and the conferences.
That it does. Howard, we got a little bit of time left here and such. How did you get connected with that cruise ship? That's a little bit different angle here because, but there's DJs out there who are kind of romanticized about the idea of performing on a cruise ship. How did you get started in that?
I initially did not seek this, believing that I may be too old, that I am not bilingual, mm-hmm. and I have no other connections or experience in that arena. Through a series of people, if you know me, I'm a social butterfly and I peopletize.
Sure. Yeah.
I really see who's who out there. I met a guy in New York who is, for all intents and purposes, a talent agency. He brokers talent for luxury and upper scale events.
Nice.
And we had a face-to-face meeting. And at that meeting, he said, I dig your energy. I love the vibe. I hope we get to work together someday. And I didn't know if he was being kind or authentic or
Yep.
sincere, but I stayed in touch with him over months and months and months. In fact, when I was in Bali, he was one of the guys that I was regularly texting on an app called WhatsApp. Mm-hmm. And I was, sharing these beach club experiences. I was DJing these exotic places, and it was so wonderful. I was sharing with him, and he said, when you come back, I want to talk to you.
Right.
So when I got back, he initially asked me how I felt about leaving for 8 to 10 weeks.
Okay.
And I said, I probably not, because I have a pipeline. There are clients that expect me to physically be at their events. And as I looked at my calendar, it just so happened that in March, I had what I call soft holds, meaning these particular events knew they were getting A to Z entertainment, but they didn't know they were getting me.
Okay.
So I had the ability to shift around, and it was easy for me. I ultimately was able to commit to 5 weeks. And I had every question that every DJ would have, from how to pack to what kind of hours who am I going to report to? There's a lot to unpack here in that arena, but once I got on the ship, I was just wide-eyed and bushy-tailed. I imagine, John, being self-employed, an entrepreneur for 30 plus years. I make up my own schedule. I do whatever I want. And now I'm a part of a giant organization with many departments, with lots of protocols. I'm proud to say these folks were so passionate about their hospitality and their safety that I was just admiring, just watching how they handle everything. It was a pure joy. And as a performer, they have so many things going on. There's lounges and bars and pools and stages and clubs. And I would find out the night before where they were putting me. I was one of 2 guys on what they call the tech team. There was another team called the animation team. When I first got there, my personality was, I should be on the animation team. That's all the rah-rah interactive components of the entertainment that's front facing. The tech team is the DJs, but also the people that run the audio, the video, and the lighting, and the theater, and the different spots. So I was technically on that team. And the truth is, John, I was treated like a rock star.
Nice.
My hours, I don't think I worked more than 4 hours a day. I worked 7 days a week, but it was such a pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
By choice, I was dapper all waking hours. I walked the ship like I was the mayor. And my joke is, so many crew thought I was their boss. People were coming up to me saying, this is very funny. They didn't get Top Dog. They were calling me Mr. Dog. Mr. Dog, excuse me, would it be okay? And I'm like, dude, I'm not your boss. So going dapper, being intentional with my attire worked to my favor. I had free run of the ship. I enjoyed all the time I spent on it. The performing was exciting, and I loved it.
What was one little thing that you didn't know it was a surprising moment when you were on the ship that you were like, oh my gosh, I would have never thought of this happening or this situation? What was something?
Great question. In this particular experience, I thought because they were leaving out of Miami that there would be a fair amount of American passengers.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't think in my 2 weeks I met 24 people from the United States. This was a wildly diverse audience, so culturally diverse. And I'm not talking about the crew, which I was only one of 2 Americans I met on that time that I had.
Oh.
But the entire body politic, all the passengers were from all over, mostly Europe, and guests were speaking Spanish, Portuguese, Italian that I was aware of. There's quite a few more. But musically speaking, I was thrown into the world of Latin music far more than I'm used to for our special events where I'm going to do 2 or 3 song sets.
Yes.
Right? Very topical, the obvious, the danza caduro. All of a sudden, I had to be keyed in. And the truth is, I wasn't. I specifically was the most challenged by songs from Brazil. So what I would do, for those that couldn't speak English, they would put their phone up in my face, just like at parties, and I would take a picture of the song they wanted, and I would do my best. I would say, let me see if I can get this. And I went into full-on mode, communicating back home, who's got these songs. The beauty part, my roommate, the other DJ, was from Spain, and he was in the middle of an 18-month contract. And he was very gracious and shared his music, just passing hard drives with each other that allowed me to play a lot of these tunes that I otherwise, beyond reggaeton, beyond bachata, what do I know about merengue and salsa? I really didn't.
Yeah.
I have very, very surface introductory, connections with that music. And now I feel a whole lot better having done it.
Yep.
But I wasn't fully tuned into how wildly diverse it was. And I'm happy to report back that our music here in the United States, which you might say Pitbull is a part of that, is still the music of choice. People love, the dirty South. They love the all the remixes, all the redrums of the pop music that's out there. All the bangers still work, right? The people like to get down, and the United States music is still healthy and thriving.
Nice. Oh, neat. That would be the learning by fire there. But boy,
yes.
Once a person has that, what a neat thing, especially to bring back in an area in the Upper Midwest that is growing with the Latin influence for the music.
I can't wait for someone to call me and say, Can you handle a Latin night?
And you're like, oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I can do that for you. Howard,
Cinco de Mayo, right around the corner.
Yeah, exactly. Well, from 2021, but that's another thing. Howard, thank you much for your time tonight. We got to wrap things up. Thank you guys for being with us tonight. If you have any questions, Howard's out there in the world on Facebook, and you can check him out and ask questions, chat with him. He is an open book, one of the true treasures of the industry. Howard, thank you once again for being on tonight. I appreciate your time.
You're doing great stuff, John. Thank you.
All right, we'll catch you guys. And at the top of the hour, we'll have Ben Stowe. We're going to talk about spilling ice cream on DJ gear.